Turns out the title was actually cautionary advice to moviegoers. Just drive away, dolls. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2024 crime comedy road movie, Drive Away Dolls. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content, like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Drive Away Dolls stars Geraldine, Viswanathan, Margaret, Qualley, and Colman, Domingo, and was directed by Ethan Coen. Set in 1999, it tells the story of two friends on a road trip who find themselves on the run from mobsters after a misunderstanding puts them in possession of a mysterious briefcase. This film had quite the journey before ever hitting theaters. Originally conceived by Ethan Coen and his wife Trisha Cook over 20 years ago, Drive Away Dolls was on the production schedule by 2007 under its original, more offensive name. It languished there, eventually falling to the wayside. But now, after his brief retirement, Ethan Coen has resurrected the project, making it his first solo narrative feature directorial effort, after co-directing 18 movies with his brother Joel. We were originally supposed to get this film last year, but it was delayed by 5 months due to the SAG-AFTRA strike, so it's only just now finally seeing the light of day. Kind of fitting that a chaotic road trip movie took such a crazy and circuitous route to make it into theaters, but was it worth it? This is a movie that should be a ton of fun. I know the trailer certainly presented it like that. I mean, it's a movie about two funny lesbian friends who get caught up in a criminal plot after accidentally ending up with a mysterious case. It's got some neo-noir crime elements, road trip comedy, raunchiness, a bit of mystery surrounding what's actually in the case, which I guarantee you wouldn't be able to guess even if you had 100 guesses. There's all these components that should make this fun, but they never come together in the right way. It's also chaotic and random, but not in an intentional fun way. Instead, it feels messy and half-baked with a lot of ideas thrown together in a way that doesn't make sense from a storytelling perspective. You could tell that this movie was trying to capture the energy and campiness of sleazy 70s B-movies, but it's just unsuccessful at it. Drive Away Dolls has some of the most bizarre editing I've seen in a long time. Not only are scenes stitched together in strange, seemingly random sequences, but this movie also makes use of at least half a dozen different types of transitions between those scenes. Sometimes, less typical transition types can be used to great effect in a film. For instance, somewhat recently, The Holdovers made use of dissolves as a way to emulate the 70s style of film editing to match the period setting of the story. But that's not what's happening in this case. Honestly, it feels like somebody just discovered the Transitions tab in iMovie or PowerPoint and decided to use each one in the same project. Scenes will crash into frame from the side or spin and flip off screen. There are randomly placed fade to blacks. It's really odd and gives the whole thing an amateurish student film feel. It also really messes with the pacing of the film, as do the random psychedelic interludes and unnecessary flashbacks. This is already a very short film, only 84 minutes with credits. Figure 4 or 5 minutes of credits puts this around 80 minutes for the film itself, but there are at least 10 minutes of this interlude flashback padding. So we're looking at a movie that's only got 70 mostly misused minutes of story. I realize that this has come across as a fairly negative review so far, so I do want to talk about something that's a bit more of a mixed aspect. The characters. For the most part, I enjoyed the two protagonists and our lead actors. Geraldine Viswanathan was the clear standout here, as the practical and uptight Marion, delivering easily the most entertaining performance of the film, with all manner of apprehensive glances and funny lines. This sets up for an occasionally fun odd couple dynamic with Margaret Qualley's much more free-spirited Jamie. The accent was a choice, and this is a character that's a bit abrasive and tough to take in large doses, but she has her moments, and is a nice counterbalance to Marion. Unfortunately, everybody else in the film is underutilized at best, or wasted at worst. Most of these characters come and go throughout the plot with little rhyme and even less reason. Colman Domingo and Bill Camp both have some entertaining moments and lines, but their screen time and significance to the story are fairly limited. And then you've got people like Pedro Pascal and Matt Damon, who were used so prominently in the film's marketing, only to end up as little more than glorified cameos here. With its two lesbian protagonists and an assortment of other lesbian characters throughout, Drive Away Dolls is definitely a very proudly queer movie. Even though the central plot is unrelated to the characters' sexual orientations, a lot of the side plots and general interactions and dialogue lean very heavily into it. And it doesn't hold back at all, even during its frequent raunchier moments. So that's pretty commendable and rare for a studio film, though it is kind of ironic that it was co-written and directed by a straight guy. Go figure. Speaking of which, the Coen brothers, together or separate, have always been a bit hit or miss for me. And even the hits were rarely first-time watches for me, usually requiring additional viewings to become hits. So it's entirely possible that Drive Away Dolls will follow that trend, and that I'll see something different about this film on rewatch. But this first time through, I found it to be an underwhelmingly scattered and often irritating experience that I was more than ready to drive away from. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. The biggest pro has gotta be Geraldine Viswanathan. Her performance here was easily the standout element of the film, delivering not only the majority of the humor, but also most of the plot's substance. Her character, Marion, is very practical, and is viewed as kind of uptight, so she plays the straight man in a lot of the comedic scenarios, and has plenty of entertaining dialogue and expressions as a result. Margaret Qualley is also good as the other protagonist, Jamie, though that character is a little much at times. But the combination of the two works surprisingly well, and actually further highlights the comedic abilities of Viswanathan. On the con side, the biggest issue is definitely the editing. It's very bizarre and amateurish. At times, the scenes feel haphazardly thrown together, almost like the order didn't matter, except it very much matters, so it comes across as extremely scattershot. And of course, we can't talk about the editing without talking about those transitions. Whew. With the random fades to black and transitional effects that have the image spinning out of frame or sliding into view like a speeding car, this feels like somebody's mom found the transitions tab in iMovie and got a little overzealous while putting together the family vacation slideshow. Con number 2 is the pacing. So the editing of the first con certainly contributes to this, but it's not the only factor. A crime comedy like this should be fun and breezy, and with a runtime of only 84 minutes, including credits, this is a film that should have felt like it flew by, but weirdly, it kinda drags and feels far longer than it actually is. The distracting and disconnecting editing was a part of this, but the overuse of interludes and flashbacks probably contributed even more. About a third of the way through the film, we start to get these psychedelic interludes that are vaguely reminiscent of those transitional interludes used in that 70s show. But rather than featuring the characters, they're mostly just swirls of color, or oddities like pizza. And rather than just being a few seconds long, some of them last for minutes. Much like the flashbacks we repeatedly see of Marion's childhood, these scenes are random and unnecessary, contributing nothing to the plot, story, or tone of the film, and instead serving to pad out the already extremely short runtime. The third con has gotta be the underutilization of characters, specifically anybody who isn't Marion and Jamie. There are a number of other side characters who wander in and out of the plot, seemingly at random, but very few of them leave a lasting impression or feel particularly consequential to the story. I enjoyed Colman Domingo and Bill Camp's brief contributions to the film, but everybody else was kind of forgettable or downright wasted, which is a shame when we're talking about a movie that had both Pedro Pascal and Matt Damon. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Drive Away Dolls or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Drive Away Dolls 2.5 out of 5 paws. It's got a promising premise and an enjoyable duo of protagonists, but the poor pacing, awful editing, and scattershot half-baked story make the film more frustrating than fun. I would recommend Drive Away Dolls to anybody looking for a chaotic and meandering crime comedy. It was a bit light on humor for me personally, but I think people who don't mind the disjointed quality of the story might be able to get a bit more enjoyment out of it. Fans of queer cinema will likely be mixed. especially since it was co-written and directed by a cishet man and is often shot with a distinctly male gaze. And Coen Brothers fans will probably be even more mixed on it. It has some of the hallmarks of the classic Coen style, but almost feels like a tribute fan film attempting to emulate that style, rather than a movie actually directed by one of the Coen brothers. If you like Drive-Away Dolls, I would recommend Bottoms. Another recent lesbian-centric comedy, this film focuses on a pair of high school outcasts who decide to found a women's self-defense turned fight club at their school in order to hook up with their cheerleader crushes. It's a ridiculous and satirical movie that takes some wild turns, but it's a good option if you're looking for a queer comedy. If you like the incidental crime road trip element of this, you'll definitely want to check out Thelma and Louise. Although it's much more subtle with its queer undertones, this is a much better made movie that balances its humor, character development, and serious storytelling nicely. And if you'd like another period piece crime comedy, you should watch The Nice Guys. This film follows a private investigator and an enforcer as they investigate a kidnapping, only to discover that things are a little more complicated than they initially expected. It's an extremely entertaining and underrated film, which happens to also coincidentally feature Margaret Qualley. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Drive-Away Dolls? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie that features a case with mysterious contents? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.